9:12. Do you ever think about the connection between what you are eating and how you sleep?
Well, there's some things you probably already know, like how drinking coffee before bed can keep you up at night. But what about other foods that mess with your sleep, or how the nutrients you eat can play a factor in your sleep? Well, joining us once again this morning on PIX11 is Dr. Michael Breus, better known as the Sleep Doctor.
Morning.
Dr. Breus, thanks so much for being with us again.
Thanks for having me. Always enjoy hanging out with you guys in the morning.
And I know it's early where you are, so.
A little bit.
Yeah, very, very sincere, thank you. So talk to us first about how food can affect our sleep.
So one of the things that people don't really think about is what you're putting in your body is going to have an effect on your body later on. So having certain things earlier in the day versus having certain things later in the day can certainly be a positive. What I like to tell people is when you want to start out the day and you want to have some good energy, you want to start out with a protein-rich breakfast. Protein is one of those things that can give you a lot of energy. You have to watch out for complex carbohydrates. I hate to say this, but things like bagels and muffins, while they're great morning foods, they can have a tendency to slow us down because they're so complex in their carbohydrates. It can make us feel pretty tired in the morning time. So maybe like some avocado toast or like a rice cake with some nut butter, something like that could be a great morning protein kind of burst.
Who wants to have avocado with nut butter?
No, not an
Not
avocado
with nut butter.
with
Two
nut
different
butter.
things.
He said avocado
things,
toast.
bro.
Oh, gotcha.
Or a rice
Two different
cake
things. Okay,
with
got it. Okay.
Two different
It's early.
things.
Oh,
See, he
gosh.
didn't sleep well.
I didn't sleep well.
So,
I mean, right? We need to work on this
Okay,
guy.
so here's the thing. What about things like our protein intake, all right? So I've often wondered, and I don't stop doing it, that I may be having a protein shake too late in the day that might prevent me from sleeping because I work out later in the day. So is there such thing as a too much protein intake, and how does that affect your sleep?
So actually there is. So if you think about it, when low protein intake is actually associated with either short sleep or long sleep, and roughly 20% of our calories consumed as protein produce the most favorable effect. So you don't want to have a big protein bomb, if you will, right before bed. And as an example, if you're doing like, let's say a keto or a paleo diet where it's primarily large amounts of protein, what you'll find is it's actually difficult to sleep during the first phase of that diet. They call it the keto flu, where it's difficult to sleep. That's because of such a large amount of protein in the system.
well, that's interesting because you think when you eat that kind of a meal and you're always really tired, people call it a food coma. So you'd think you'd be able to sleep really easily, but I guess
that's more primarily on the carbohydrate side. That's when we get that food coma feeling. And that actually has to do with serotonin, believe it or not. So when we have large amounts of carbohydrates, it actually helps increase serotonin, which is the calming hormone. By the way, that's why we call it comfort food, because it makes us feel comfortable. So that's the thing we have to be careful of. Now, to be fair, having some of those foods in the evening can actually be helpful.
Like
But you have to be careful. You don't want to have something with a high glycemic index. Having some low fat or some fats before bed can actually be pretty decent for you to improve overall sleep quality. This is where, let's say you have an apple with some nut butter, not with avocado, just letting you know there, bud. That's where you might want to have something like that in the evening time. But one thing, and I know you're going to ask me about this, is what about things like spicy food? Because spicy food can definitely have an effect on your stomach from a gastroesophageal reflux standpoint. But believe it or not, some people get nightmares if they have spicy food right before bed.
Oh, okay, so that explains it. Because last night I had very spicy food, and I slept worse than normal. And I was wondering, I was literally like, oh, I think it's the spicy food. Anyway, when you say what is an example of a good food? You said the apple with the nut butter. You know to avoid things like coffee, right? But give me another example of a good food to eat that helps you sleep.
Bananas, believe it or not.
Really?
So bananas are like nature's sleeping pill. They're loaded with magnesium. And one of the things we're always looking for is ways to get magnesium in the body in the evening time because it can help with sleep. Bananas work really good. I created this recipe called banana tea where what you do is you take a banana and you want to leave the peel on it, cut off the top and the bottom, and boil just a banana. There's actually more magnesium in the skin than there is in the fruit itself. I call it banana tea. So to be clear, all you're doing is boiling a banana with the skin on it. But you drink the water, and it's loaded with magnesium. You can give it to seniors. You can give it to kids. It works really well. Other vitamins and minerals and things like that you're going to want to be looking for. Calcium is a big one.
What's it
Iron
taste
is
like?
a big one.
Bananas.
It tastes, well, as my daughter says, it tastes very banana-y, Dad. So you really have to like bananas.
But I thought there was a lot of sugar in bananas.
So there is, and so for diabetics, it's a great point. So for diabetics, it probably wouldn't be appropriate to do that because it's such a high glycemic index food. In a diabetic's case, I would actually use guava leaf tea. Not guava fruit and not guava juice, but guava leaf tea. There's at least one study to show that it will help keep your blood sugar stable all night long if you have a cup of it about 30 minutes before bed.
Interesting. Now, I have a question about the timing of when you eat, right? You know, you're supposed to, there's that shut-off point before you go to bed. And, you know, a lot of people are creatures of habit. For me, it's like I have to eat at 5 o'clock, but I also go to bed super early, right? So what's the time span between dinner and sleep?
So it depends upon how old you are, because that's going to give us a little bit more information about how quick your metabolism moves. But as a general guideline or rule, you want to stop eating approximately 2 to 3 hours before bed. That allows for everything to clear through your system and you to kind of be on your way from a digestive standpoint. You have to remember the human body was not meant to digest lying down. It was meant to digest either sitting or standing. So our bodies really don't do well when we have a big full stomach and we lie down in bed. I will admit it feels really good to have a nice big full stomach and lie down. But it really doesn't do us any favors from a digestive standpoint.
Yeah, that's hard too, though, because when you wait that long, I'm always hungry.
Yeah, especially hard for me because I sleep hanging upside down, so it's really difficult. Yeah.
You're like Batman or something.
Dr. Breus, thanks so much. We always appreciate when you come in here. And I guarantee
always
next
have fun with you guys.
I guarantee
always
next time
good,
you're on, we're still going to have sleep trouble.
Always.
Right?
We'll talk offline. I'm looking for that cure.
Thanks, Dr. Breus.
I'll help you out, brother.
I know.